So for the past year, the only shoes that I have trusted on the trails are these. They are the North Face Vectiv Enduris 4s, and they have been on my feet for everything, including speed work, long runs, and all my races from 20k up to 53k. They have tackled everything from mud, rocks, hills, and mountains, every type of terrain, whether it's technical or just very easy light trails. They have tackled everything, and that is why I believe that they are the best trail running shoe on the market right now. Okay, so let's start off with a quick overview of the shoe. The upper is an engineered dual warp mesh. The midsole is high performance 3D TPU plate, full length ultralight Dream nitrogen TPU midsole for a high energy return. The shoe has a 32mm heel stack height with a 6mm offset. On the outsole we have a durable surface control rubber outsole. The lugs are 4mm up from 3.5mm of the previous Vectiv Enduris 3s. There is no carbon plate, but as I mentioned, there is a TPU plate. In my opinion, these do fit true to size. The price point for these is £145 here in the UK compared to £225 of the Vectiv Pro 3s, which do feature a carbon plate. Now, whilst I said I do find these true to size, it is recommended if you are running in heat or you're doing an ultramarathon to potentially go half a size up. I learned this during my 53k because towards the end of the race, my feet were beginning to swell and they did feel ever so slightly snug, but for normal runs or runs that aren't in very hot temperatures or you're not going very, very far, then I would stick to true to size. Now, I know another thing that people get hung up on is, do they need a breaking in period? I got these back in February of 2025 and I did not need a breaking in period. I done, I think maybe 2 or 3 very easy training runs, and after that I raced in them and I didn't have any blisters, I didn't have any hot spots, I didn't have any issues with them. Literally first run out the box felt great. The Dream foam was something different because my runs are normally in the Nike Pegasus Trail 5s, which I do rotate with these, but the Dream foam just made so much difference. And even the energy return from the TPU plate, I just felt straight away, so that's why I was confident enough to race in them, even though I didn't have much of a breaking in period. So all my running this year has been in the UK, and we get a real mix of terrain here. We get rocks, we get mud, we get loose gravel, we get hills, we get all kinds, light trail, technical trail, every type of trail you can imagine, you can pretty much find here in the UK. And I have put these through every single test, and pretty much all of them they have excelled in. Let's start off with the outsole grip. It has not let me down once. In previous shoes and some that I still have and still training, like I mentioned the Nike Pegasus Trail 5s, I have struggled in thick mud or really wet conditions. However, I raced in these in a race in July, which you'd expect was nice weather, but it wasn't. It was torrential rain and there was huge boulders. It was the Tittersworth 22k, I want to say, if anyone knows the race. Huge boulders. It was absolutely lashing down with rain all morning, right throughout the race, and I was really worried that the grip on these might not be great, and if you fall on one of them things, you're gonna get quite hurt. No problem. Absolutely no problem at all. The first few I was a bit tentative with my foot placing, but then I kind of realized, actually, these have got me covered, so then I could kind of just relax and actually stick to focus on the race itself. So back in February, before I bought these, I raced in my Nike Pegasus Trail 5s, which, as I say, I train in quite often, still to this day train in them. I find them a really, really good training shoe, but I did race in them, and there was a bit of thick mud in the race that I'd done in February before I had the North Face Vectiv Enduris 4s, and I slipped, and I was fine. Ultimately, you know, these things happen, but I did slip, and then every time I got close to quite thick mud during that race, I was noticing my stability and balance was just not there. Now, ultimately, that could be on me, but I did feel like it was potentially the shoes, because since I switched to them literally a couple of weeks later and raced again in quite thick mud, no problems at all. So the 4mm lugs on these do make quite a bit of difference, and that rubber outsole is really, it performs really, really well. As I mentioned before, the Dream foam cushioning was something that I hadn't really experienced on the trails. I've took quite a long time out from running, and then I've come back. I used to do road run and cross country and track. Never done trails before. Come back, started doing trail run, and obviously just trained in the Nike Pegasus 5s. So going to these, which had the Dream foam technology going on, I was like, wow, this is really, really unique, because they support you so much, especially on the long runs or on some tougher sessions. They really do protect your legs, but at the same time, they don't make you feel so far detached from the trail, because ultimately, for me anyway, One of the cool things about trail running is that you do actually just get to feel the trail underneath, and every little bump, every twist, every turn, you do still get to feel that. They're not minimal shoes, so you're not going to feel literally like you're running completely on top of the trail, but also they do have enough cushion and enough protection to help you out on them long or tough sessions. Speaking of which, the TPU plate does offer incredible energy return. Now, as you've seen from my pair here, I have just bought a new pair, but these are pretty battered. As I said, I've tested them in every single type of scenario since February, so we're looking at the best part of a year. So I have tested them in a lot of different circumstances, and the TPU plate is giving a bit less feedback now, but at the start and throughout most of the year, even during my 50k, which was in September, the energy return that you were getting from them was really, really nice. Particularly, it was more noticeable when your legs are getting tired and maybe your running form isn't quite as perfect as it was at the start of the race. You do really get quite a nice energy return from them, and in my opinion, it does help with recovery after the race. Now, one of the key things for me with any type of running shoe is the heel and foot lockdown, and these are pretty good. I don't know whether it's the laces, the length of laces, the material of laces, but these give you a serious lockdown. I've never had any issues with my foot feeling like it's sliding or slipping or just moving about in the shoe, and I've never actually had to tie my laces again once I've started running. It's a one tie and done for whether it be half an hour or 7.5 hours like I ended up doing my ultramarathon, and really, really impressed with these shoes. Now, whilst these probably aren't specifically built for fast speed work, I have done some of that. I tend to kind of pick other shoes if I'm doing a session, but obviously when it comes to racing, I want to get a turn of pace on, and I feel like you can. These are lightweight enough to still be able to get a good turn of pace going, get your legs moving. But if you were using these specifically for your speed sessions, I'd probably opt for something different. Now let's move on to my dislikes of the shoe, and this is going to be a very, very quick section because there aren't too many. One is very, very petty from me, and it is I don't like the colorways. These are the obviously white. They don't look very white, do they? But they are white and yellow. And then I do think they've actually recently brought out a black version, but the other version I've got are like blue and yellow. Again, none of them are really my cup of tea, but ultimately the shoes, they perform, and that's all that really matters. And then the one occasion that I have kind of consistently felt myself struggling with in these shoes, and it's a very, very specific, very strange situation, but it is very loose gravel. I first noticed it when I ran in Delamere Forest on a training run, and there's a very specific part of the forest where it is just loose gravel. There's no mud, no grass or anything like that, just very, very fine loose gravel. I just found myself not being able to properly grip to the surface, and I was only ever so slightly, but I was shuffling around. And obviously if you're not expecting that, that's when injuries can happen, because if you fall or you just kind of overstretch your muscle ever so slightly, that can be a problem. Thankfully for me, it wasn't. And obviously since that moment, I've known to kind of expect that if I have been approaching any loose gravel. But it is something to bear in mind. If you are going to be running on trails that are predominantly loose gravel, look, ultimately it might be my running style. It might be fixed with other people, but it is something that I have noticed. So to wrap up, who are these shoes for? Now, as I kind of hinted at, if you are looking at doing shorter races, and by shorter I mean like 5-10k, that is short ultimately in like the ultra trail world, compared to people who are doing 50ks, 50 milers, 100k, 100 milers. That's not me. I'm in between. I like to do the half marathon distance. I think anything up from that, these are ideal for. But if you are someone who's looking at doing a really, really fast session, or a short uphill race, these might not be for you because they aren't geared specifically for speed. They, in my opinion, are more geared based on the cushioning, based on the TPU plate. They are geared to helping people with them longer miles. And as I said, you can get a good turn of pace going in these, but if you are specifically looking at speed and trying to run really fast, these probably aren't for you. You probably want something with a bit less cushioning. Now, obviously the furthest I've ever run is 53 kilometers. So if you are looking at running further than that, if you're looking at doing a 50 miler, 100k, 100 miler, or beyond, I can't comment on whether these shoes are going to hold up well, but what I can comment on is the fact that I have put well beyond that amount of distance in them over the course of various months, various training sessions, various terrain, various weather conditions. These have held up really, really well, and they do look absolutely battered now, but I can still train in them. I literally used them the other day for a training session, and then my newer versions I'm using for races and very specific sessions at the moment. But in terms of a one-off, I can't really comment on that, but what I can comment on, as I said before, these are true to size for me, so I went for a size 11 here in the UK, but I did notice towards the end of my 53k, it wasn't a warm day, it was about 11, 12 degrees here in the UK, but putting that amount of distance in them, my feet did begin to swell, and I just felt like they were getting a bit too snug towards the end of the race. I didn't have any blisters or anything like that, but I had a few sore toes the next day. So if you are looking at doing long distances or running in the heat, then I would probably advise going half a size up. So that is all for this video. Let me know in the comments what trail shoes you guys are using at the moment and whether you would recommend them, or if you are indeed on the lookout for a new pair of trail shoes, maybe that's why you're watching this video. As I said, I am using the Nike Pegasus Trail 5s for the majority of my easy runs, and then any specific sessions and races, or if I am in different terrain, maybe in the Lake District, I am always picking the North Face Vectiv Enduris 4s. They are my go-to, and hopefully my go-to for a good little while. But if you do have any recommendations, let people know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next one.